I'm Jay-Z.
I'm Daniel.
This is Just My DIY.
And you can tell by the little bit of affection that just happened between the two of us that Valentine's Day is right around the corner.
That's right. We have the perfect DIY for this holiday. Our take on candy conversation hearts.
And in order to make them yourselves, all you need to do is have some casting resin, a little bit of UV resin, and a couple other pieces of equipment we'll show you along the way.
That's right. And to do the lettering, we're going to show you two ways. One, if you have a vinyl cutter like a Cricut, a Solo, or a Silhouette. The other, if you just have an inkjet printer. So no matter what materials you have, you too can make these candy conversation hearts.
And as an added bonus, you can have your conversations on the fridge. Bam! Magnetic.
There you go.
XOXO.
Nope.
Yeah.
Text me.
Nuts for you.
Eat me.
That's what I would suggest.
Oh.
Bite me.
So just to say, whether Valentine's Day gives you the warm and fuzzies or the super snarkies, you can have fun with these candy conversation hearts. We're going to show you how to make them right now.
So what we have here is the casting resins epoxy A and B. We're going to mix them in equal parts. We believe we need about 6 fluid ounces of this to pour 12 of these conversation hearts. So we're going to mix 3 ounces of part A and 3 ounces of part B. We're going to mix this for about 4 minutes, making sure to scrape the walls and the sides and the bottoms and scrape, 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 stir, stir.
Then we're going to divide them out into 7 different little plastic ramekins. This is so we can add our colors. Now we want to get this as equal as possible because again we're trying to get 12 in total. Now we have a white pigment that we're putting into the resin. This is to make sure that it is super opaque. I will say this is not the right white pigment to use per se. This is more for ocean resin, so we recommend using one without an alcohol base in it. But it's what we had, so it's what we used. When you're mixing your colors, here is the biggest thing. Do not just dump a lot of pigment in at once. You want to go in little increments because you're trying to get a nice pastel color and not a very bold one. We'll list all of the colors that we used from this pigment powder set down below in case you're looking to recreate with the colors we used.
Now we're going to set up a leveling process for our molding tray. This is very important as you can create uneven hearts, and well, we just don't like our hearts to be uneven.
Leveling is so important in resin pouring, never skip that step.
Now we're placing magnets in the bottom of this, all north sides facing up, so that the magnets don't attract to each other and move around during the pouring process. And of course, if you happen to knock your leveling system out, you got to double check it to make sure that it's level again. A couple of gloves later. Oh, and a job to do. We're going to try and pour in smooth, steady, and thin streams to pop as many bubbles as possible and avoid moving the magnets around with the resin mixture itself. We're going to try and pop any bubbles that we do see with this lighter. We're fairly aggressive about it, and we went over it 2 times to ensure that we got as many bubbles as possible.
Normally we'd use a blowtorch, a butane torch on this, but that was way too much for this size pour, and
we didn't want to light the cardboard on fire.
Yeah. So we cover it and let it sit overnight to prevent any dust from getting in before it cures.
So the next day, we're like, how did it do? So we popped it out. It still have magnets in it.
Yay! And the magnets definitely work. Even though a few of them moved, it didn't affect how well they sit on the fridge. Now, one thing I want to point out is we did put these magnets in the bottom of the mold, so that is where the backs are rounded and the tops are concave. This is actually what we wanted because we're going to be using UV resin on the top, and that helps us dome it and keep it in check.
So we pull them all out and we set it up for the lettering process.
That's right, but these colors really did come out perfect. I love how close to the originals they are.
So now we're going to use inkjet transparency paper wording system.
This inkjet transparency film we got on Amazon. Again, we will link everything down below, but this is a nice clear sheet that is meant to go in your inkjet printer.
So you can see people's beautiful faces.
We did find that our Epson Eco Tank had an issue pulling it through just as is, so we pulled out one of the kind of tissue paper-ish dividers that it came in the pack, taped that to the clear sheet, and used that to make sure that it runs through.
Now this printer cart we made ourselves, we'll have a link in the description to the video of how we did so, in case anyone has any questions.
We get a lot of questions on that. But as you can see, with the paper taped to the back of the transparency film, it ran through and printed perfectly.
Just don't be too aggressive with the dismounting of the paper. You can scrape these letters off, so be gentle but effective.
Yeah. Now we're just going to use a pair of scissors to trim this out. We're only going to do one of these just to show you how to do it. The other method is our favorite, but we wanted to offer this option for people who don't have vinyl cutters. But of course, as we're using UV resin, make sure you have a mask. It smokes so much when it cures.
We're going to also put on a glove. I don't really feel both hands were necessary, but at least one. And here's our UV resin. It's going to have an easy pour top on it once you remove the little cap and the tin foil protector, and have a UV flashlight for this part of it. Now we have the XOXO on transparency film that we're going to trim down to size and then put on the conversation heart of our choosing. To do so, we're going to put a little drip of the UV resin underneath, which will act like a glue. And we'll put the XOXO on, and with a toothpick, we'll smash it down into place and make sure there's no air bubbles or clearness behind it. And then flood pour it with the UV resin using the toothpick to try and draw it all the way to the edges. There are more than one methods than toothpicks, some will say, somewhere in here.
I like to use a popsicle stick, but he likes to work in smaller increments.
So we use a flame to pop the bubbles and then flood it with more until we have the shape we're looking for. And more. And more.
We did find that it was best to work in layers with this because we ended up with less bubbles, and once we were happy with how it domed, we used the UV flashlight for 90 seconds.
This isn't the only UV system we will use, but we've never done this before, so we're going to double check to see if it's actually hard. And it was.
It's amazing how quickly that UV resin cures. So now we're going to move on to the second one, which is making words with vinyl. We are using our StarCraft SOLO on this because we love how well it cuts these smaller letters, and it's just great, quick, and easy when you're working with vinyl. You can also use a Cricut, the Joy, the ExploreAir, or a Maker, or your Silhouette. This is an Arial MT rounded bold font, in case you were wondering. It should be on most computers. So once we get this all weeded out, we will be ready to apply these to the other conversation hearts.
They're going to cut them out and get them ready for some transfer tape.
Keep in mind, you can definitely reuse your transfer tape. We love the Cricut transfer tape because we find we get the most reuses out of it. But for this first one, obviously we're just going to use that transfer tape, lay the letters down, try to get it as straight as possible, but just remember that some of those conversation hearts weren't exactly straight with their lettering.
Yeah, if you really want this to be accurate, it should be off-center, tilted, and faded on several letters.
We want these to look better than that. So once we get the vinyl adhered down, we're going to do a layer of the UV resin. Again, I like using a popsicle stick. That's just personal preference. And I did pour this one a little bit thick. Daniel worked in thinner layers, which was easier to pop the bubbles. So if you find you still have bubbles after putting the lighter on it, just use a toothpick and you can kind of pop them, pull them out, and make sure everything looks good. We are going to be doing the balance of our hearts with this particular method. So we are going to use a bigger light this time. This is one of those nail lights. You just want to make sure to get the right wattage. This one has a ton of watts and is great for it. We will link it down below. but we do it for 90 seconds, and of course we are wearing our masks.
And as a safety precaution, you should never stare into the UV lights.
Never. And once they're nice and hard, we realize we definitely love them, and we're going to continue on and make the rest. So we kind of assembly line this where I'm doing the lettering, Daniel's doing the resin, and then we light a bunch of them up together at once. And here you go. Sweet and snarky conversation hearts with some subliminal messaging. We had so much fun making these and love the way that they turned out. They're almost good enough to eat.
But we do not recommend eating them. Epoxy is not healthy for humans, and the magnets will tear your intestines up.
Yes.
So make good choices.
Yes.
You should also choose to like this video, subscribe, ring the bell. On the conversation line, just go ahead and feel free to drop us a nice little Valentine's Day heart conversation message. And know that everything that we use to do this is listed down in the description.
Also in the description are all of our social handles. Please connect with us across platforms. We love hearing from you guys. And don't forget to check out our blog, justmydiy.com. Thanks for watching.